With 6 years having passed since I sold the C30, thought a flash of Rebel Blue from another Volvo might be appreciated by those of you that still miss it. So stay tuned to see me battle through a wash and tinted wax of a tasty V60 Polestar on what was officially the longest, sweatiest and wettiest day of the year so far. While at a casual glance the racy 6-cylinder Swedish estate, which had come from Japan of all places, didn't look particularly dirty, a closer inspection showed that it was sporting just about enough dirt in the form of front end flies, bird bomb splatter and dust from both the dry summer sky and the big brakes to warrant a clean on camera. But before cracking on with that, which proved to be a bit of a ball ache as the great British weather couldn't decide what to do with itself, thought you might enjoy a few clips pulled from the previous owner's dashcam, which included the car sat at the export compound with a few others, it being driven up onto the boat under the Yokohama Bay Bridge, a bit of post-work banter with his bird and even a sneaky land of the rising sun fart, which I didn't get round to extracting on the day but could always potentially revisit. So with the paintwork looking to be in fairly decent condition swirl mark and scratch wise, a gentle 2-bucket wash was going to be needed to try and keep it that way. So went ahead and topped up 2 larger items for use on the body, as well as a smaller one for washing the wheels over with, which were either brand new or had recently been refurbished to a top spec standard and so deserved a bit of TLC. Using some Meguiars Wash Plus, which I thought might serve to gently strip things back prior to waxing more effectively than a standard shampoo would. And I tried to get my buckets filled up front if possible to eliminate the chance of rinse water and chemical residue drying on the surface, which can occur if you commit to filling after wetting the car. And while that does mean the mix will get a bit flat in the meantime, a quick froth up with the pressure washer will have things fully reactivated in a jiffy. The 20-inch wheels, which I do really dig the design of, as well as the carpeted arch liners, which no one digs the design of, at least not from a cleaning perspective, were fairly generously sprayed down with a diluted all-purpose cleaner dispensed via a complimentary but quality feeling Turtle Wax Ultimate Foaming Pressure Spray, which for the most part I prefer to use with the non-foaming head, to soften up any heavier dirt and brake dust so it could be more effectively pressure rinsed away following a quick soak, with the overall aim being to leave the various surfaces as free from loose and potentially abrasive dirt as they could realistically be, so I could then go on to make physical contact in a relatively safe manner. After being pre-cleaned, the wheels, brake calipers and cheap tyres, which on a car that puts the power down doubt will be staying for long, was sprayed over with some Turtle Wax Reactor all-wheel cleaner, not necessarily because they were in dire need of heavy fallout removal, but rather because the car was new to me and so didn't want to assume I could adequately turn these parts around with a shampoo alone. But it wasn't left to soak for any considerable period of time. It was really just there to give the soft brushes and wash mitts that were subsequently worked over in methodical fashion a bit more bite. And I generally like to use shampoos alongside dedicated wheel cleaners, as the suds they create not only provide a bit of a safety blanket against swirls and scratches, but also serve to neutralise the lingering potency of heavier chemicals as you work, which you'd be relying on a rinse alone to do if you went without. But either way, I spent a bit of time on each corner ensuring not only the wheels and calipers were seen to, but also the tyre walls and arches, although there wasn't a great deal of room for manoeuvre between them, before going on to rinse everything off and out so I could move on to treating the body. What remained of the diluted all-purpose cleaner was then sprayed over the bottom half of the body again, just to soak through and soften up any more stubborn dirt like the baked on bugs and bird poo that you couldn't really discern from a distance but were definitely there. Then once that lower portion had been adequately coated in chemical, the whole car was uniformly blanketed over with some old yet sweet smelling jelly bean snow foam I pulled from the spares and repairs cupboard when on the hunt for some Swedish themed yellow stuff that I either didn't have or couldn't find, to give both the untreated dusty sections a chance to soak up some suds, as well as the previously treated ones the opportunity to safely sit in pre-wash product for that little bit longer, as although the sun might not have been out here, it was still quite warm. Once that surprisingly stable pre-clean combo had had a fair few minutes to soak into the Polestar's freshly imported nooks and crannies, went ahead and thoroughly rinsed it off from top to bottom with the pressure washer, doing my best to keep the sun splatter away from the back end of mine, which I'd spent a fair few hours on the day before. And with the Volvo's paintwork being in pretty decent condition to begin with, it was important I spent some time ensuring as much encapsulated dirt was removed here as possible, which would reduce the need for heavy or repeated scrubbing with a wash mitt afterwards. So, with arguably the most visually satisfying part of the cleaning process complete, it was time for arguably the most physically satisfying one, which for this particular estate car incorporated a freshly machine washed microfibre mitt, 2 big buckets, one for rinsing out stale suds and the other for reloading with fresh ones, and a scattering of unforecast midsummer rain, which on the one hand served to prematurely flatten the Wash Plus product, but on the other prevented any of its residue from drying on the surface, so couldn't really decide in the moment whether to be miffed or made up. Now, while you've likely watched me wash many a car before, both in pampering and slap dash style, I'd say being part maintenance, part pre-wax strip wash, this one sat somewhere in between those two extremes. But either way, it was nice for me to thoroughly cop a feel of a nippy Rebel Blue Volvo on camera for the first time in 6 years, and hopefully for you to see me doing so. And once I had, even though it had been thoroughly raining on and off throughout, still made sure to thoroughly rinse things down with the pressure washer one last time to remove any remaining light suds and freshly dislodged dirt, which was a methodical but fairly straightforward affair, but obviously needed doing to ensure I could then go on to safely towel dry the car prior to hopefully waxing it. Although a complete blow dry would have been the friendliest approach to ridding the Volvo of rinse water, its surfaces weren't really sporting enough slick repellency following its light strip wash for that to be properly effective, so just went with a traditional towel dry instead. But the freshly washed MCR items I had to hand here shouldn't cause any issues of their own, especially on previously cleaned surfaces, so Spent a bit of time ensuring all areas of the car were as dry as they possibly could be, as you don't want any concealed bits of water being released from cracks and crevices when you're trying to wax and buff things. But all that ultimately proved to be a complete waste of time, as soon as I finished, the drizzle started again, so to give it a chance to pass once and for all, worked my way around the lower parts of the car with some Auto Finesse Oblitarate gel and a general purpose Versatile or two, just to knock back some light sticky spots that the pre-clean and contact wash alone hadn't been able to, before quickly blow drying the wheels, tyres and brake calipers off, as there wouldn't be room to do that in the garage, which unfortunately for my small censored camera is where the car had to be subsequently squeezed into and re-dried off, as clear skies still looked to be the best part of an hour away and couldn't really afford to be hanging around outside in the rain for any longer. So despite the fact traditional paste waxes have been relegated for most people, I still like to use them when I can, and thought a blue tinted one was a more fitting product choice for this Rebel Blue Reminisce video than something more modern and synthetic. So primed a sponge applicator pad with an older formulation of Dodo Juice's aromatic blue velvet stuff, before dabbing and spreading it over the surface to get a feel for it, as it had been a while since I'd waxed anything over by hand, but thankfully it spread nice and evenly and buffed off with a minimal amount of fuss, which is exactly what you want when waxing, as it's supposed to be a relatively straightforward, accessible and effective way of protecting your car for anyone who's willing to give it a go. Looking back, this car would have been a perfect example for a resin-based all-in-one polish or cleaner wax, as those kind of products contain light abrasives that gently exfoliate and decontaminate as you work, whereas a pure paste wax like this only serves to protect. But I've often got to come up with a specific theme or plan of attack before actually seeing the car in the flesh, and so I'd equipped myself for a wash in traditional wax for this one, which would still leave it looking better than before, especially once I got it back outside in the light, which thankfully I did manage to do for the final hour or so. While this particular pigmented wax is really intended for use on darker blues to add a touch of extra depth and gloss, I do remember using it on my own Rebel Blue C30 once or twice, so knew it'd be fine on this identically coloured V60. And although I wasn't particularly frugal with the stuff here, as I was planning on leaving it with the Polestar's owner once I was done, as it would likely be more use to them than me, still only took 2 or 3 fresh towels to get the car fully buffed off, which, considering the size of it as well as the warm conditions, was pretty impressive. It was then just a case of tying the finish together with a Tyre dress using the Armour All ceramic enriched high shine stuff I indirectly featured in my last upload, as I bought it from Halfords with my own penny sweet money, so thought I might as well use it. So thoroughly brushed it over the tyre walls before leaving it to soak in and self-level off camera, which is important to do, as if you try and buff it over without waiting, we'll just pull most of the product straight back off again, although that might be because it's a high shine type product and so isn't really supposed to be buffed over. And as much as I would have liked to have done a few other bits after the tyres, like protect the wheels, clean the glass and polish the poo chutes, with the off-camera chewing of the car fat throughout the day, as well as time lost to unforecast rain showers, had to leave it at that. So while a wash, wax, wheels and tyres is only realistically going to achieve so much, the V60 Polestar still looked better for the time that had been spent on it, although perhaps not for long, as word of a freshly clean car had clearly got out. But either way, it was good to get to grips with some bright Rebel Blue paintwork again almost 8 years to the day after picking up the C30, which I know for a lot of you was your favourite car of mine. Now, links to most, if not all, of the tools and products used here can be found below, so check them out if you're thinking of performing a similar clean on your own car, but not before soaking up the parting shine from these final few aftershots.